All right. Good morning. There it goes. How you doing? Okay, I have 10 o'clock and trying again. Okay, I have 10 o'clock and it's 9 members for our quorum, and you certainly have that. Good morning. Let me know if you can't hear me. It is 10 a.m. It is 9 members for quorum, so we can call this meeting to order. Thank you so much for being here and serving on the data transparency panel. I realize it's the capital for the day. We did not know that date, and we really appreciate you for your time here this morning. We have an agenda in front of you. We'll try to stay on track of this. Just some general housekeeping. The restrooms are across from the bathroom over there. There's coffee over here. We have 2 hours scheduled, but we only have about an hour and 40 minutes on the agenda. So we can take a brief break at about restroom. One of our items that we need to do is every year we elect a vice chair, but since we have so many new members, I think it might be good to do that at the end of the meeting, just so that everyone's got a background and knows exactly what they're saying. The general agenda is we can go through introductions in a minute, so that everybody knows who's here, and also the goals, your personal goals for the DDP, the goals of your organization. And I like to reiterate that this panel is the steering committee for the state efforts. So it's all about alignment. So continue to use whether formally in the setting or to email to subcommittees, and use this as a way to guide our state efforts in alignment with the needs of your organization. We will go through a background and history of the data transparency panel as a level set for those who are new or just joining, because this journey's been going for about 7 years now. We'll give an overview of the statewide longitudinal data system and some primary pieces of data infrastructure efforts managed by the data transparency panel. So we'll be updating everybody, but it's your responsibility to help guide that to the evolving needs of our state. We want to talk a little bit about CiviForum, which is a new platform for service discovery and common intake. And again, looking for your guidance on what's next with that and how we can use it as an asset for our state. And I think we'd be remiss to not at least breach the topic of AI. This would be more of an opening of the conversation at the end of the conversation, just so that we can start addressing it. I've got a few points in there to just kind of help frame the discussion, but I'm really thinking more of an open discussion to see what are our thoughts, what are our concerns, what should we be doing as far as policies, literacy training, safe environments, etc., to harness both the potential of AI, make sure we're all on the same page when we're talking about what AI is, and managing the risk. And then we'll do the wrap up and action items. We have the date for the next meeting. During the wrap up, we can elect a vice chair. So to get things started, we'll do introductions, just say, and I can just start and go clockwise: name, organization, role, personal or organizational goal for the data and transparency. I'm Robert Magoo. I'm the chief data officer, sit within the Department of Transformation and Services. My goal for the PPA is, like I said, to just leverage our collective wisdom to guide our state's data efforts as an asset to better serve our residents, our employers, our communities, our state.
Jay Harden, I'm the interim director at DIS and also the chief operating officer. So representing DIS, TSS, and a personal goal or something would be around data management, data governance, and securing that data is primarily where DIS looks at it from.
Exactly. Dan Pearson, Chief Information Officer for Energy and Environment. Just here because I was told here, but no, seriously. Two things. Number one is figure out where that data transparency is for sharing data between agencies. Seen that already just in the course of a few short months of some requests. And then, of course, as everybody else, try to learn where AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think that's the challenge right now, or one of the challenges. So all ears and little talk. So that's who I am and what I'm at.
Hi, I'm Charlie Collins. I'm the Commissioner of Revenue. Jim Hudson, the Secretary of DFNA, really wanted and intended to be here, but the governor's doing Capital for a Day today in Wynn, so he allowed me to take his place today. I've got a great passion for data and data analytics. I worked at Procter & Gamble and other companies in the day, and we used a lot of that to help, for example, our customers, like retailers, like Walmart, et cetera, be able to take the data lakes that they had back in those days, 100 years ago, like retailing was like a data lake, and they had all of this transactions information, and it sat in this data lake. And merchants in those days would more often than not use kind of gut feel, stack it high and let it fly. And so there was a lot of effort put forward to gather, organize, summarize the data so that it could be analyzed, and then hypotheses and other things. And that kind of became category management, which kind of laid out how are you going to put certain things on store shelves and what shouldn't be there, how many units for supply chain, and it became turning data lakes into very useful data, right? So I've got lots of tax data and driver services data and these types of things. So a core thing that I'm very interested in is how we can make that data more usable. That obviously is not connected to this, right? So I'm very interested in your next section where you talk about kind of the mission and the goals of this. I'm very interested in understanding and learning that. Thank you.
My name is Jim Carter. I'm with the Department of Health. I'm the designee for the Secretary, Renee Mallory. I'm the Chief Information Officer, and some of the achievements that you all have done with transparency are data governance, data warehousing, centralization. And as you all know, the Department of Health has a lot of information, a lot of patient information, a lot of PHI, EI, so on and so forth, but it's all segmented, siloed in different areas. So my focus is to try to get that transparency, not just within the Department of Health, but also with other agencies, because I know we do a lot with public safety, we do a lot with the Department of Human Services. So I'd like to continue that as well.
Hey, I'm Mitch Rouse. I'm Chief of Staff at DHS. My goal is probably going to be similar to Charlie's, which is really want to gather information, get an idea behind it, synthesize that information, analyze it, and then try to take some action on it, right? So I want to get some ideas from here, take them back to DHS or the state as a whole, and be able to use this data to make us more efficient.
Hello, my name is Ryan Otti. So just think of it as Lionel, just replace the letter L with an R. So I'm actually the AD Enterprise architect. I'm on behalf of Arjit Sarkar, because he's out of town today or this week. And so he sent me to take notes and maybe learn some of this new information.
Morning, everybody. I'm Tim Holtoff. I'm the Director of the Court Information Systems Division for the Administrative Office of the Court, serving as the CIO, CTO for the judicial branch, representing the Chief Justice. We are neck deep in a project to build a new court case management solution to deploy statewide. And many of you at the table, we've been sharing data for a couple of decades. And we'll be looking at what our next generation of data sharing is.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ford. I'm the Assistant Attorney General in the Office of the Attorney General, Tim Griffin. Of course, I'm his designee. I actually work in the Public Protection Department, and one of the things that I do specialize in is litigation regarding data breaches, as well as cybersecurity technology. By statute, we have the responsibility of ensuring that people have, or entities have reasonable cybersecurity practices, and I believe our office is taking a great interest in a collaborative approach to protecting data, and anything relevant to cybersecurity. So I'm actually looking forward to being on this panel. Appreciate it.
Good morning. This is Sarah Tolkner. I'm here to present the Department of Veterans Affairs. Unfortunately, Secretary Defense out of office because of a family emergency. So I'm here to represent our department. Actually, my always motivation when I started this position, there was not much known about the veterans. So we started the efforts of identifying them, and we started working with the TransUnion and non-profit organizations to first identify like who are our population in terms of the veterans. And I know that the AR data is very important for us to connect them to gather more data, because once you identify them, like there's this AR homes and the cemetery, like we need to do some predictions about those populations, like how many nursing homes we will need based on their health issues. So in this case, I need the Department of Health's help to maybe identify those things, or maybe to do the backgrounds, Department of Corrections to give me some feedback. So this is, I believe that this group is very valuable to me in terms of our data. So I'm really looking forward to the future steps.
See this.
Good morning, Jeff Wood, the Chief of Staff of the Department of Military. I'm here representing General Stubbs, who was unable to attend. One of my personal goals would probably be to get up to speed on DTP and to make this thing not get feedback. Another goal, but also how we can leverage this data, whether it's for recruiting or for domestic operations in response to different areas would be two of our keys.
My name is Alan Fitzgerald, and of course I'm the DPS IT CIO, and of course we partner with a lot of agencies in here, share data and things like that. I'm going to say this for Gary's benefit, but I do think it's very, very important that we streamline operations, streamline data to make it simpler and easier for the citizens of the state, while making sure we keep security and governance at top notch. Because we must protect our systems and our data for the citizens.
Carson Calloway with the Department of Park Service and Tourism. I'm the designee of Shay Lewis, who was at prior obligations today. And I'm here to gain ideas and insights about how we can better leverage data and perhaps AI to interface better with our customers in the hospitality industry and specifically tourism.
Wade Hodge here for Secretary Lindsay Wallace, Department of Corrections. I'm the Chief of Staff of the department. I've been in that role for about 3 weeks. The Department of Corrections, we have lots and lots of information that we're still maintaining in paper form. Any advances in any type of better data management is something that we're really interested in.
Corey Seats, Arkansas Department of Agriculture and General Counsel, here in the place of Deputy Secretary Edwards, who had another meeting she had to attend. I think we're very similar in situation to Wade and Corrections. We have a combination of hard copy and paper files and electronic files, a lot of licensing and different types of applications that come into the department, some hard copy, some digital. So a way to streamline that and make it more effective would be very beneficial for us.
Ken Anderson, I'm with the Department of Labor and Licensing. I'm Secretary Daryl Bassett's designee. He is at the Capitol Workday today, so I'm honored to be here for him. And obviously, we want to have total transparency in the occupational licensing arena. We're also interested in leveraging our historical inspection data to help us predict on the regulatory side where we may have issues that will typically occur, and using the data for predictive analysis will help us to head off a potential boiler disaster or potential elevator disaster based upon past inspections. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michael Verdeska. I'm the Chief Information Officer of Murphy USA. I'm here because my chairman of the board recommended me to Speaker Matthew Shepard. So honored to be here. As an organization, we publicly stated we're our biggest capital investment ever in a digital transformation, which is everything we can do with data. Not only sell more product and service our customers better, but save money, be more efficient, and a lot of really exciting things. So I'm here just to learn more, and with 17 years of CIO experience in public and private companies, just glad to help out any way I can.
I'm Corey Scott with Data Scout, part of the evil private side of this. My code word over here, it'll stick together. I'm serving on behalf of Senator Hester as the Senate Pro Tem designee. I've been on this particular panel previously with Senator Dismayne and Senator Hendren as their designee. So I'm looking forward to see where we've moved with the longitudinal data system, data sharing. I'm an operations guy, so I'm interested to see how we can streamline, make efficiencies, and just assist on providing a better citizen experience with information and transparency. So.
Jennifer Davis, Chief Privacy Officer with TSS. I work with these folks and many of you directly or your departments on a regular basis to, resolve issues, improve processes, try to head things off, try to collaboratively work together to resolve issues and really make all of this better, a better process for all of us.
Hello, I'm Gary Vance. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer with TSS. I've been with the state for almost 3 years to the day. I was 25 years previously in the private sector, financial services, cybersecurity. And I think the contribution that I would like to make to this panel is to help introduce some governance disciplines around data, primarily around classification of data. We have to have a good classification model in order to understand how we treat the data that we're trying to protect. From what I've seen so far, we have opportunities to do that within the state. So that's a significant area that I hope to be able to contribute, is to help us understand, what we're doing with our data, and also to ensure that we're effectively and efficiently using the data that we have, to its, to the extent that it serves the citizens of the state while we protect that data at the same time. So that's kind of the area that I hope to be able to help.
All right, we are right on schedule. Since we're not too many other people in the room, I'd like to acknowledge Jeff Dean is the Chief Information Officer of Department of Human Services. Senator Jane English is a long friend and champion of data in Arkansas. And Steve Holsey's here with Department of Finance Administration. We are right on time. Thank you so much for the background information. And there's a lot of slides and things today because it's necessitated by the need to just get a lot of information out. I think in the future, we want to spend less time presenting to you and facilitating discussion with everyone and allowing time for each department to, share other things that are going on. So please suggest future agenda topics. And your introductions are really helpful. And so I can try to, since we have a lot to cover, use some of that to kind of pull out some of the relevant pieces that might be actionable for you today. Just to level set on the background and history of the Data and Transparency Panel, there's some key pieces of legislation and studies. I can share this deck out afterwards with links to all of these, and they're all on the ArcLight website. So the first was Act 1282 of 2015. That was essentially studying the initial goals. That was the legislature recognizing that our state has duplication of data and efforts. We have opportunities for improvement for better managing data as an asset. And it didn't really make any recommendations for how to fix it. It just acknowledged some goals and some gaps and established the Open Data and Transparency Task Force, or ODTF, for calendar year 2016 that brought together all of the executive and agency heads to meet monthly, have guests from other states, other experts, with part of that as a sector representative, to just kind of come together and come up with a potential approach. There was an Arkansas legislative audit report on the benefits of statewide data warehousing that was used a lot by the ODTF. I can include that as well. And that's referenced in, there's a final findings and recommendations report from the Open Data and Transparency Task Force, really recommended a statewide data warehouse, which didn't address all the gaps. So it kind of went into more broadly kind of a statewide enterprise information management program. We realized that more study was needed, so it included provisions for doing a more robust feasibility study, and realized that we needed a chief data officer, we needed a chief privacy officer, we needed a statewide data governance panel to guide the effort themselves. And all of those rolled over into Act 912 of 2017, which is the initial bit of legislation in the state code, saying, establishing the role of CSDO, the establishment, roles, and membership of the Data Transparency Panel. There have been a few other smaller acts along the way that have really expanded the membership to make sure, for example, inclusion of the judicial branch. And after transformation, to really align and include full representation from all our cabinet agencies. There was a data sharing and decision-making task force and a separate data sharing and data-driven decision-making ALC subcommittee. There are reports on the activities and findings, recommendations of those, both on ALC. I can share those. Act 936 of 2019 sort of added to the responsibilities with the statewide longitudinal data system, which is really kind of sharing across time, and we'll drill into these a little bit more. And then most recently, Act 634 of 2023 required a shared service data hub and public.
Robert, could you explain the public portal, kind of what it is, what you envision the use of it, and where we are on that, please?
Yes, and that could easily take up the whole next meeting, and we can I just sent Edith a little bit of information this morning, but we can go to that a lot more. The act itself doesn't go into that a lot. It's starting to make sure that we have, secure, compliant, governed data sharing between our departments. But this is the information delivery and access for the residents, the employers, for the outside.
So I guess here's where my question is. Gary, you mentioned that you were in the finance arena for a long time, right? So back when you and I were pups, you'd go wait in a bank and you'd stand in the teller line. And when you got to the front of the line, the teller would wink at you, put up her gone to lunch sign, and you would go in the next line. Banks were famous for the worst customer service there is. McKinsey study in 2022, the banking industry is now #1 of all consumer industries. And the biggest change that I've seen is they have a banking portal where you can use your thumbprint or a login, and all your accounts are right there. Your mortgage, your car payment, your checking account, your savings account. You can move money between them. We don't need to write our checks in the book anymore, right? So if you take that public portal idea and you map it on top of the bank idea, a citizen could have a state of Arkansas account, just like they have a bank account at Arvest. They could use their fingerprint or their MDL or their sign in. They could go in there and they could see, here's my income tax. I've got a refund coming. Here's my driver's license. I need to get that renewed. Here's my child support enforcement payment. Here's my game and fish license, et cetera, et cetera. Is that what the public portal is designed to do?
In general, yes, and we haven't been specifically talking about those services, but that's the reason for these conversations. And a lot of that this year has been really driven by the Lawrence Act, Protect Act, the governor's workforce cabinet, some governor's tenders, priorities. And so that a lot of the collaboration with employers, with providers has been around simplifying that exchange of connection with individuals, with opportunity, with employment, with learning, alignment between our evolving employer needs and our education pipeline, which is getting more dynamic and needs to be more responsive. Starting to connect students in secondary schools with sort of a digital portfolio that can move with them beyond graduation as part of what lifelong interaction pathways, things like and that's bringing some core underlying foundations, like identity management, secure data sharing, document management, all the kind of pieces necessary to do that, and then working on user experience design and kind of shifting over to cloud technologies, but they're very modular approaches. Because so much of that's been driven by the governor's workforce cabinet, a lot of that so far has been driven by the secretaries of Commerce, Education, Corrections, Veterans Affairs, Education, Human Services, and Transformation and Shared Services. But it's not really intended to be exclusive to those entities. That is just who is leading on a particular state priority.
So I don't want to be duplicative or redundant, but I'm initiating what I'm going to call now a public portal project. I was calling it an electronic government services portal, but I'm going to adopt this language. It's a public portal. So I'm initiating that project now. I welcome you to kind of join us and guide us and all those things. I'll just leave that there. Thank you.
Yes.
And let me just add, absolutely, the long-term goal would be is that a citizen can find everything in one stop. As a citizen right now, you have no idea where you're supposed to go. I mean, we work here, we don't know where we're supposed to go to get all this stuff done. So ultimately, yes, but we are at the you gotta crawl before you can walk phase. And we are maybe not crawling yet. I mean, we're still having a hard time getting agencies to share the data amongst each other to get to that. So that's hopefully what this board can help us get there, because everybody is, if we don't share it, we're not going to have one place to know that your driver's license and your fish and game license are all together, that you're the same person. So some of the departments are very good about sharing data. Some of them are very hesitant. And I mean, I understand why, of course. course, but it's a learning process. And so once we can pass some of those hurdles to get past the data sharing, we do have some, again, like Robert said, the, governor's initiatives that are taking precedence on what gets in that portal first. But a lot of this panel is working through those issues so that way we can talk. Because if we can't talk, we're not really serving our citizens right now anyway. We're all doing just bare minimum. We're duplicating all of our efforts. So we're trying to bring us together. And then once we can do that, we can crawl a little bit faster. So that way, one day, yes, a citizen can have a portal and log in, because nobody wants to go stand in line at the bank. Nobody wants to, I shop on Amazon because I don't want to have to go in the store. If I'm at the gas station, it says see attendant, I'm going to see another gas station. So yes, I want a portal, and we want that for our citizens. So yeah, we're there. We're still laying a groundwork for a lot of that. There's a lot of work being done, but we still have we have a lot of work to do.
So, and again, I'm going to stop after this one more comment because I don't want to hog the whole meeting. But there are two different sets of objectives. And again, let's just use me, for example, at DFNA. I have all your tax records, your social security number, all this private information. I've got incredible restrictions from the IRS, legislative audit, many others about what I can do with it. And there's really no scenario where I'm going to be able to say to you, I'm going to ship you all of this stuff. I got millions of records that I'm going to ship it all to you, right? So that intermediate step you're describing, I'm not saying is it essential to a public portal where Jennifer says, based on my facial recognition thumbprint, my account setup, I want you, Collins, to share my Jennifer's information with me, Jennifer, right? That I can do. I get a permission to do it. Halsey will let me do it, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a very different thing. So I'm going to be waiting for Godot if I have to be able to share all my data with others before I can share it with an individual citizen. So I'm just going to leave that on the table because I don't want to give up on this idea of a portal, but I don't want to kind of put myself in a scenario where I have to do something that I don't yet see a way for me to get to in order to get there. All right, thank you.
And I will say the general approach is not that we've learned a lot from Indiana. Indiana has been one of the big leaders in this space. They've been working on it since 2013. And they started with a governor's executive order that established a big data hub, but they started with putting all of the data in the state, the data hub all at once. And, we've learned from some of the benefits of that, but that's not the approach we're taking. There's definitely an 80-20 or maybe a 5-95 rule where a little bit of the data meets most of the needs. So it's a very demand-driven approach. We're not putting data in to put data in. We don't have time to be doing that. It's not a valuable use for time. So as there's a request, as there's a need, we do the data sourcing and we add just the bare minimum to meet that need. And over time, the deltas get smaller and we just kind of let the demand drive that. The other piece that this legislation did was mirroring some of Indiana's law that kind of establishes an intermediary. So that, for example, during the pandemic, there was a 60-day period in which there were additional Medicaid payments for providers for providing COVID vaccines to encourage more vaccination. So it was a very short window. And we were at the request of Health and Human Services, you're going to take all the individually identified Medicaid data and all the individually identified COVID vaccination data, do a secure match, and then give back to DHS only the bare minimum information that's needed on COVID vaccinations for the Medicaid population. So Health didn't get the full Medicaid roll, and DHS didn't get all the vaccination information. So it's a trusted intermediary or kind of intermediary agent. We sort of wear we can't do anything with the data that Health or Human Services can't do, but we can wear both hats at the same time per the terms of the agreement and the disclosure rules to kind of get around some of the all or nothing information sharing. That was the best model we've seen at the time from Indiana, but like this, we continue to evolve and improve. So that's the way we do things today. Doesn't mean it's the way we do things tomorrow if we find a better way. So I'm not gonna read all these for the sake of time, but 1282 just kind of set forth those same goals that we talked about. Just data sharing, access, using data as an asset, including leveraging data for program integrity and just efficiency purposes. Act 912 established the responsibilities of the CDO. It's not just me, I've helped. We have about 15 on staff now, plus some additional extended staff. But so master data management, data architecture management, data quality management, data governance, data asset management, stewardship, open data exchanges, standardized access within, between, or outside systems or agencies. The initial legislation was very much focused on interdepartmental. That's coming along pretty well and very mature, and so we're looking at a lot of multi-state and cross-sector now as well. Data cataloging, business intelligence, and data warehousing. Act 936, as I said, added longitudinal, so really with sharing this data not only kind of across our departments at the same time for operational purposes, but over time for continuous improvement, evaluation, research, and alignment of programs and resources. Act 634 was the data hub, so we've talked about this quite a bit. It's establishing a shared service data hub, but we have to have privacy, we have to have quality, we have to have security, we have to have compliance, all those types of things. And a public portal that will provide Arkansans with easy access to data. If we can just get right into kind of where we're at today with the LCDF and the data hub, and please keep the discussion going. We can stop at any point to make this relevant and tie it with your organization's needs. So we did an 18-month study. It was per the Act, the cost and feasibility study of a statewide data warehouse program. Although at the time of the ODTF, we realized that a data warehouse is good, but wouldn't necessarily meet the needs of reducing duplicative efforts at collecting and managing data or improving the quality of data or things like that. It's primarily retrospective analysis, but we also needed real-time operational supports. We did a gap analysis study that informed this with all the different departments, and when synthesized, most of the needs were around data sharing and integration. Increased analysis capability really trailed those by a good bit. So most of what we were hearing from all of the departments was we need better ways to securely share data and data together so that we can just use it. We also heard that, along with the infrastructure, we need analytic capacity. We need people trained in how to use it, and we need the different policies and processes. It was enabling openness, transparency, sharing data to enhance its value, always while enforcing privacy, security, and compliance, supporting data-driven decision-making to analytic maturity, to development, support of analytic skills and shared services. This is definitely sort of a maturity model where we do in the hub have very advanced machine learning and AI capabilities, but you really, if you're not doing descriptive data analytics, so you don't have your data cataloged, or you don't have your data quality under control, it's kind of diminishing returns. They're not very effective to just jump right to prescriptive analytics. But we've got the pieces there to start with anybody wherever they're at, and through training and resources, kind of accelerate that journey. Integrate data for improved cross-agency analysis and reduce duplication of data and efforts, enabling real-time assessment, support, alignment, and automation of decisions, programs, and resources. This real-time shows up a lot here, but real-time can be subjective. So always trying to find that quality is fitness for use. So, and sometimes real-time means within 5 minutes latency. It's entirely dependent on the use case, but that largely architecturally meant that we're not doing nightly batch ETL processes. So some of these types of things were important to say, okay, the ability to, for virtualize and connect data instead of making a copy of it and collecting it somewhere was important. And managing enterprise data as a state asset. And so the data warehouse study approaches based on the needs, and helping people just jump to the next slide because it's a little bit easier to read. Kind of resulted in, and there's a much more detailed diagram in the study, which I can share. It's about 40 pages, so I didn't want to do it today. But these sort of layers basically going from providers to consumers of data. And at any point, any entity could be a provider or a consumer. So starting with data quality at the source. So a lot of what we have in place today is we have a data catalog solution that we're starting to roll out. It has tools for agencies to be able to easily profile their data. And it uses AI mostly to just try to remove some of the manual effort. So it can start identifying based on the data, does that look like a first name or a street address, whatever, especially if the column name doesn't really give it away. And tagging the data to help with security things, like it can identify this is tagged as first name, my previous name. For like we can start tagging it with this is HIPAA, or is this FERPA, is this CMS, or what are the different governance policies? This is PII. It can identify for the patterns when something that looks like an SSN is maybe in a less sensitive field to kind of start providing manager by exception on these types of things. And we did a quality dashboard to just start helping people to understand completeness, timeliness, representational consistency, all that type of stuff. And so that's really coming into that, as opposed to just a warehouse sitting right on top of the operational systems and providing tools and resources to manage the quality of the data at a transactional level without adding, more manual tasks than are necessary. The federation layer, this is based off of that need to get up to real time. It doesn't always have to be real time. Sometimes if systems don't keep history or for lots of different reasons, we may also need to use a repository approach. But there's a data virtualization layer. So as we connect data sources into the hub, we can essentially make them all look like one database virtually. So you can essentially send one query at it and it breaks it up. And this is going over here to Oracle, and this is going to SQL Server, and that's going to DB2, or this might be Parquet, and then it will stitch them back together and present it. It just lets us sort of have a virtual database across all of the databases. That doesn't mean that everyone has access the same way. The data integration layer, this can be traditional ETL data integration tools are built in for batch transformations. Your standard data quality things like parsing, standardization, enrichment, the data lake, like Charlie was talking about. Master data management is a key piece. That's really the glue. So if we can kind of put this virtual database across all of our databases, we have a lot of different representations for the same overall concepts, whether it be a person, an employer, like we're working a lot on taxonomy of skills. Do we have a common language of skills? All of these concepts, we might represent them a lot of different ways. So the key to effectively looking across all of these transactional and event-based data is making sure that we're speaking the same language. And I don't think it's practical to say, okay, everyone's going to go and redo their systems to all use the same codes. But with master and reference data management, we can resolve those differences and kind of really understand that this person is represented in 50 different systems, 50 different ways, and use it as kind of a key or index to be able to look across those systems, including over time, different representations of the same person at different points in time, because Susie Jones in K-12 might then be like Susan Jones in high school, and then might like Susan Smith later on. And it's important to realize that's the same. And this also includes kind of at the household level, because there's changes there. The analytics layer is just, and this is really just a toolkit. No one's intended to use the whole toolkit at the same time. So we just want to make sure that we as a state have an efficient and effective shared service toolkit and the knowledge and training to use it. The analytics tools include business intelligence tools that our state's been using for decades. We currently have about 17,000 shared service business intelligence users across the state that, you know, they drag and drop and they answer questions about 1.6 million times a month. So that's, and I think anywhere we see people spend 3 days, you know, a month doing like VLOOKUPs and a bunch of stuff, like that's an opportunity to, you know, say, would you like that to push a button or to just come scheduled in your inbox? So we've been seeing that since 1997. So it's not the hottest, most sexy thing, but I think there's still a ton of potential value there and opportunities for efficiency. Big data processing, again, we still have a lot of structured data that we're maybe not fully leveraging together, but we're adding a lot more capabilities for unstructured document processing and other big data processing. We're starting to get files in a lot of different formats. They're not flat relational files. We're getting Parquet files. We're starting to deal with blockchain data and things like that. So we have to, you know, be able to look at data different ways, however it's stored. Predictive machine learning capabilities, including simulation optimization. So like a recent example is we're using it. We graduate about 32,000 high school students a year. About 18,000 of them are not on the college track. And so around this time of year, they get matched with employers. It's like a speed dating job interview type of thing. But there'll be a bunch of employers. They meet around the different regions of the state. The employers say, these are the jobs we have open. The students will take interest and aptitude assessments. And it's always a very manual process leading to a variety of quality of the match for the interviews. And this year we used linear programming models and you know, operational research theory to optimize those matches. And the results have been very good. Lots of good feedback that the quality of those matches for those interviews between the kids and employers has been mutually beneficial to them. So they're, you know, all along that spectrum from just automate what you're spending 3 days a month doing in Excel to, you know, very large complex tasks are in there in the toolkit. So the point is just having lots of different on-ramps and off-ramps to kind of need to go over that. Security and compliance layer, like I said, we want to have the ability to sort of look at any data together from a technical standpoint. From a governance standpoint, we might not be able to do that. Plus, there's lots of different layers. And so this is the ability to carve off different views off of that big comprehensive set. So if you are a caseworker and you have a caseload, you might be able to see individual identified data for your caseload by role-based access or by individual consent. If you're a researcher and if you're working on an approved project on a safe environment, you might be able to see individual de-identified data relevant to that research and then be subject to, you know, disclosure review and things like that to get it out. To a certain level, a lot of stuff becomes with enough privacy preserving techniques, essentially built-in data. The fourth tier that wasn't really envisioned in 2019, it's really emerged over the past couple of years, is an individual's data. Every one of us has administrative data records across a variety of systems that are locked away and maybe not doing us the full amount of good that they could. This is really pervasive in learning and employment. So these learning and employment records, that's giving an individual access to their records on a permissioned blockchain that's spellbound for their own use, but their self-sovereignty. But you know, they can disclose or revoke and whole or in part to a variety of applications to common interfaces. It's most common with their college degrees, their work experience, things like that. But that can extend to driver's license, birth certificate, DOT physicals, things like that. But again, largely it's based on the needs. That's sort of a fourth tier of access as far as the individual's access to data. And Europe's been further ahead of this with GDPR, but this is building on a lot of those foundations because a lot of the platforms and standards we use have sort of evolved this way based off of what's going on with GDPR. Finally, access and delivery, really we want to make sure everything's available, human and machine readable, on multiple types of devices. So that means we're always thinking about, what's an easy way for someone who's not very technical to access it? How can it be accessed via APIs and with interoperable open standards across states? Because we're very cognizant about not building a bigger Arkansas-shaped silo, because our business doesn't stop at our state boundaries. We have a lot of people come work from Tennessee here. We have a lot of people come go from here and work in Tennessee. We have people that remote work internationally. We have people that graduate. We teach a lot of Texas teachers. There's a lot that we can't tell just looking at Arkansas data. People move here, they've already got education. We need to be speaking the same language. And across the whole thing is governance. It's been extended a little bit. This is something that sort of the extended view. So we're zooming out to where that kind of layer cake is, that little circle data hub. There are a variety of administrative and operational systems at the bottom. And then it kind of extends out some of their things. The learning employer player records I talked about on the side. Increasingly using kind of an operational data store to we're always trying to be non-invasive in this, to ease the burden on data contributors and make it easier to share data. So we kind of move from a lot of transformation on the source to just saying, well, let's just take the data as it is from the source, and then we'll kind of handle the transformation, which is also helpful for having the same picture and be able to apply the quality tools there. So for the higher education information system, they were doing a bunch of extracts with transforms and things like that. It was hard to sync up, so they got to they take the weekly database backup because it doesn't need to be more frequent than real time. They just ship the database backup over. So there's a kind of a second copy of that. Then we'll transform it into national interoperable standards. We're also kind of pushing that up and doing a lot of national kind of multi-state work off of these standards, and that's letting us borrow products from other states and co-innovate and collaborate with other states. We're starting to participate more in the Federal Statistical Research Data Center. That allows us to ship some of our administrative data in to get combined with data that we don't have, such as from the Census Bureau, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, other federal data sources. Using the Administrative Data Research Facility that I'll talk about more in a minute, primarily for multi-state use and the statewide longitudinal data system. And that's kind of, it goes in ODS, and there's a lake in Marcus. This is always seems to be out of date because things are moving like so quickly. And I will read it. I realize up there it's hard to see. And one question we currently have is, where are the gaps? What's needed? The data that are currently in the Arkansas Statewide Longitudinal Data System are from a commerce point of view, the workforce development programs. This is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Titles 1 through 4. So that's all of the adult youth that are in dislocated work or trade adjustment assistance. All those programs delivered through the workforce centers, adult education, GED, rehabilitative services, universal employment services, registered apprenticeships with the Office of Skills Development, earnings and employment. We'll talk about the coverage. That's the unemployment insurance wages that are reported quarterly by employers. It's about 95% coverage, because not all occupations are covered. We're working on that. Unemployment claims over on the education, and that's all. And so far, all of this is at no cost to the state. We've been very active at pulling down federal and philanthropic support to do all this. So that's been supported by a $2.5 million grant from the Department of Labor under the Workforce Data Quality Initiative. On the public safety side, we have a $1 million grant from the Department of Justice, the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, that sort of coincides with Deidre's work with CSG using the Justice Reinvestment Initiative for the recidivism study. This is to basically support the sort of data capacity behind that. And so we're starting right now with the state correction system, which is the big one. That's very large in scope, and getting all these layers put in. That's really the first one that's getting fully onboarded onto the data hub. But that scope can include courts data, that can include ACIC data, whatever makes sense from a public safety and criminal justice standpoint. And I think, and a lot of these grants are written in a way that we can respond to state needs. So I think what's going on with CSG and the recidivism study, and certainly the PROTECT Act, can help inform how we best leverage these resources to meet our state's current needs and priorities. On the education side, we recently got a $4 million grant from the Department of Education. It's a 4-year program. There's statewide longitudinal data systems program. We already have K-12 education in, but again, it's per demand, and most of the demand at this point has been what is highest level attainment. Did someone graduate high school? What was their highest grade? Maybe what school district? That's about it. This is going to serve a lot more detailed needs, so that it's getting a lot more granular K-12 information into the Common Education Data Standards. It's supporting some portal development and universal ID for early childhood. We already have all of the post-secondary information in it, but it's helping get it over again, the Common Education Data Standards. It's expanding career technical education. A couple of other pieces to that were important to the Department of Education were foster care and juvenile justice, because of their potential impact on student learning. So those are included as well, but not in the first year. Human services, there's some data on Medicaid, and particularly the Medicaid expansion or Air Home. There's a lot of work around there around social determinants of health, because all of those other things I previously mentioned can have can contribute 60% to healthcare outcomes and related costs, educational attainment, employment, food insecurity, all these different things. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or food stamps, previously is fully included, as well as temporary assistance for needy families. Ones that are potential contributors would be biorecords, potentially, for program integrity purposes. It could be helpful to really understand death records, or no one in the state has a really good population by age. And so that could involve birth records and a lot of other sources to even kind of understand how many Arkansans are where, and what age, and when are they aging out, where do we need changes in schools or services. Driver's license, and actually one of the keys is a lot of states use, they really just use it as glue. Wage records only have SSN first name, last name. A lot of other records may only have first name, last name, date of birth, so you can't match on that. So a lot don't actually share out anything about driver's license, but it is a good way to bridge those two records, because it has all four. And occupational license. Been talking to the secretary, because a lot that comes up a lot in the workforce. And I think that's part of the PROTECT Act. Going forward, each re-entering justice-involved individual will get electronic records of their learning and employment while incarcerated, any occupational licensure where relevant, for which they are qualified, in other kind of records. I mentioned that we don't want to just, even if we have the perfect system as a state, we still have gaps because people move. So we do a number of efforts to try to improve not just the timeliness, quality of our own data, but also just our coverage. We're learning a lot about our supply in our employment pipeline, but not as much about the demand. So we have a number of efforts when it comes to alignment to get better signaling of demand from employers. there's been a lot of anecdotal qualitative evidence here pointing from employers that their educational pipelines are not aligned and vice versa, but there's been a really good quantitative way to facilitate that continuous alignment. So 30 Arkansans have been trained up in talent pipeline management methodologies. We're getting ready for another 30, and we're involved in several efforts. We're one of the pilot states for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Jobs and Data Exchange, and working on a couple of other efforts that can allow semantic consistency around current and evolving occupation and skill needs, and low friction, timely signaling of demand from employers to training providers to service providers, so that we can better facilitate that alignment without too much work or friction on anyone's side. We are working towards multi-state coverage of employment earnings. Say, for education programs, they really need to know, are graduates working, what are they making, and they don't all end up in Arkansas. So through the Administrative Data Research Facility, through a multi-state agreement with the Department of Labor, been able to get a national level coverage of employment earnings, at least for UI covered earnings. And that can increase outcomes on average about 10%, but for specific programs can be much more significant. So, and a lot of this is also just understanding where we have gaps so that we can understand and communicate that and think about that in our analysis. We are working towards coverage of non-UI occupations through the IRS Secure Query Service. So this is, you used to have to go physically to the IRS and go in a clean room and do a bunch of stuff, and it wasn't fun for anyone, including the IRS. So they are piloting something funded by the Walton Family Foundation through the University of Georgetown, with the NASA Data Institute, where it's got that same trusted intermediary type of thing, where we can send up records and get secure record linkage and get back certain things. So it's like a virtual clean room type of things, which is more efficient for everybody. And so we're the pilot state for that, but we're really just starting by seeing, we're already giving consumer information products to our kids to inform their education and employment pathways. We know that there's bias and gaps there, but we don't know where to exactly to the degree. We've seen from that 10% increase just from getting more UI wage records. So we're going to compare that initially just to better understand the coverage, to know where we might have some caveats, how we might need to mitigate some of that bias and communicate that bias. Some other states like Virginia have used it for going to human services to do checks for earned income tax credit and child care tax credit coverage, to use it for co-enrollment and intake, things like that. Some school districts use it to have a better understanding than just the free and reduced lunch rate for the needs of their students. We are working to reduce the impact of record linkage bias. I mentioned we can't always link things. We have a grant from the National Science Foundation. We're working on the record linkage approach for the new National Secure Data Service. We're very fortunate to have Dr. John Talbert sharing all of his information and knowledge from Axiom here. He's been a mentor to a lot of us, and it's certainly half of my team. So we're continuing to work with the Center for Advanced Research and Information Quality at UALR on grant from the Census Bureau to improve record linkage for the Census Bureau, largely using household information and improved parsing of non-standard names, addresses, and unstructured text using artificial intelligence. And with the Census Bureau, we're really focused on foreign-born scientists and engineers, because the Congressional Budget Office had a dearth of information on the outcomes of foreign-born scientists and engineers, because they typically do not have an SSN at time of secondary graduation. So from that, we developed some new record linkage approaches. I'll get listeners in a minute. New record linkage approaches for measuring the record linkage bias and sensitivity, and allowing it to mitigate that analysis and communicate that in the results. We've been working with federal agencies on some state federal data sharing. The new crop of federal CDOs, and Denise Ross in the White House, who was a chief data scientist, but now she's the deputy chief technology officer with the White House, is really focusing on state federal, and benefits the state, and that's kind of along with like 18F and US Digital Service that are providing a lot of technical assistance and resources to states to support digital transformation. We're really focused for Secretary Tanner on sharing of military data, and we're definitely aware of the needs for recruitment, and I think there's talking with DoD, there's bidirectional benefits because we put out consumer information products about potential pathways, and those don't currently include military. So we're really looking through those learning and employment records with the right grain at the right time as a service member is transitioning, making sure that we can crosswalk work experience and education, such as the community college of the Air Force, into their civilian counterparts, use that for credit for prior learning to have that articulation, and I think then repeat. And so there are different occupational codes, op codes. A lot of this is translation and secure governed sharing. And finally, eventually joined the Longitudinal Employer Household Dynamics program. We were the second to last state in the continental United States, but we beat Mississippi. We can stop for a break in just a minute. Like I said, we can have the best infrastructure and actually almost like the Arkansas Research. This is for researchers. Per subcommittee of the VPT, we really decided a few things like when we're talking operational data sharing, individual identified, we wanted it to be on-prem. So the Arkansas Data Hub is on premise and it's only accessible by state employees on the state network. We wanted to be cloud ready, so it is a private cloud, it's using cloud technologies, it is containers, it's microservices, it is running in data center rest on 3 racks on premise hardware. So we've got the same physical security, defense of that, all the directives we talk to as the transactions. We did not want to bring, although we technically could, researchers into that environment, but we did want to do better than what we've done in the past, which is sending a bunch of files to researchers, having no idea where it was maintained or where it was going or if it was really destroyed, because it's one of the defense depth where we can send something we send out in the walls. So we have established the Arkansas Research Environment. This is it is a cloud data enclave. It is used by multiple states. It is currently FedRAMP moderate. It is in the process of becoming FedRAMP high, primarily for DoD data. So this is a way that we have switched in the past year or two. We have a research request, such as for parks, the economic impact study for outdoor recreation. Department Ford is working on that. We can quickly get them into an environment where they're trained, they do their agreements, they're given access to the enclave. They can work with linked, to provide individual data. They can get their work done a lot faster because it's already been modeled, it's already been cleaned, it's already together with data catalogs and things like that. They cannot pull data out of the environment themselves. They have to apply their disclosure, privacy and preserving techniques per the terms of the agreements, and they do an export request. And we have to pull it out for them and check that they have applied all of their privacy preserving techniques. We will give them essentially flip it into open data, what can be released. And also, depending on the terms of the research agreement, could say that if they were, say, using data from higher education, and higher education wants to see the results before it goes out, those types of steps can be put into the work. It is sort of owning, it came out of the Evidence-Based Policy Making Commission, so it started at the federal level. A lot of federal agencies are using it, but really now a lot of states are using it. So the Midwest, there's a Midwest Data Collaborative, a Southern Regional Data Collaborative, a Northeast Data Collaborative, in the Western states are starting to come in. So it's all the states kind of coming together like we're doing here, collaborative governance over this environment. It does facilitate multi-state data sharing if allowed by the agreement, but we don't have to do that. But because we're starting to have interoperable data models, standards, layouts, Illinois developed a portal during the pandemic to look at UI claims, PUA claims, PUC claims, just really understanding what's the economic impact of the pandemic. 11 other states were able to just adopt it almost overnight because all they had to do was feed their standard files because we're using files that we all do because they're federally required, same layout to do that. And now we're building on that, and Wisconsin's building on that, and we've got multiple states all involved in the same product, and then everybody then. And then for training, we've got a number of different training options. We've in the state before done with UALR and MIT, the Institute for Chief Data Officers. We did that for all of the agency data officers. I think there's been a bit of turnover like since then, so I think we might see about running that again. We've done some other in-state programs on data-driven performance management or other special topics. But we host something called the Applied Data Analytics Training Program. This is a much more intensive, sort of semester-long, very hands-on program that starts and teaches people SQL, Python, R, but also inference imputation, how to present results, just the data science process, information visualization, all these things. We intentionally put together teams with multiple departments, sometimes multiple states or multiple sectors, often have a higher education researcher, and they work with real administrative data to answer real policy questions and build real products. The current one called Evaluate Enrollment to Employment Pathways, the Department of Labor sponsored 5 runs of that. It's 30 students each. It's using linked Arkansas administrative data. We have participants from 25 states working to, and some of the institutions include Yale and Harvard and Georgetown. But they are working to solve Arkansas problems, develop products of benefit to Arkansas. They're getting benefit from access to the curriculum, and now we're starting to see where Arkansas is sort of training and building national data capacity. They've done projects looking at SNAP spells and, when people stutter in and out of SNAP, what happens in between. They've looked at co-enrollment patterns with WIA and SNAP. They developed a number of different products. The first 9 projects were great for the first 2 classes. There are 2 cohorts running in parallel right now. The state of Washington is just amazing. We're getting, we're building this national community of practice. It's over 1,000 people strong. Because sometimes our closest peer might be in another state if we're working in something very specialized. So we're building that network. We're all in the same environment. We're all trained with the same curriculum. We have another class coming up in May. I think we've got 2 slots left. So as a first come, first served basis, any of your staff want to attend. And we will continue to do these. We'll be doing one prison education pipelines, and we'll be doing one for the more education. That'll be a couple of years out, but we will try to run a few of these a year as needed. We've already had almost 100 Arkansans go through this. I'll share this later if you send the products. They're not just doing kind of one-off research. They're developing actual scalable, shareable data products. The one little rocket ships is actually looking at multiple stackable pathways across multiple departments. They actually took something that California, just a Connecticut team, that took something that California did, developed an Arkansas version. Because they wanted to kick the tires on it and see how to apply it for quality of the job dashboards. And Delaware, a combined Delaware, Massachusetts team took job quality methodologies from both Delaware and Massachusetts and applied to Arkansas data. So it's bringing a lot of minds from across the country together with the tools and with the data and secure environment for the good of all. And, these products, there's also with that, a lot of the funders building Melinda Gates Foundation, Dean Strata, are pooling money to say, like, if someone in a class does a prototype or a project and it looks like it's of value to the state or the nation, they can invest in it to productionalize it. And we have one of those. We're taking advantage of that. I think we could probably take a 5-minute break before we get into the Civiform, which might be the I think relevant to those who are talking about like having forms and applications and things and, you know, who will be in the public. So we'll just take a quick break. Power through.
And they come up with French. And then, but the alternative, so. I go apply for
Yeah.
Well,
I need a transport. So I'm breaking this. Each trains, there's already teams, so that's being. So what are we? Thanks about. I could use it myself. I can use it myself. Correct. Everyone's a little. If you're spreading it, like, even as those days, we're not just gonna be there.
It's some security, which great, nobody. Some use driver's license. Well, driver's license. So much just like. Yes. Exactly.
To me, it was like wildly different. Just like the NBL. Yeah, so.
I don't use
Baby, that's the one I forgot.
Later. These two got. Looking at all this. Looking at their. And really talk to them. This is on the ground that can take the reins. I think you're that guy. I got but all of this is the opportunity. Just to see, mimicking all that's good. Another day paradise, that's our ego. Yes. I didn't. I don't want to make everything for this. I was assuming that everything is your property is for as long as I'm moving, I'm still down. Streets, but also you, this will not be done. Discretion is the better part of balance.
You got 2 years in.
Yeah.
Really? So he didn't tell us that.
I mean, thinking about it, it would be, I mean, especially if you're in a crowded area and it's all, you're trying to. You gotta be trying.
He's got to get a shoe.
That's a difference in discussion.
We had fun.
Sounds like a hostile act. Extending the curtain. I will say. Just personal contact. Well, that's right. Very great. Send me an email. Thank you for teaching. That's almost an easy. Is the IT guy says, we need to reduce our. I'm thinking, okay, what I have open there.
Do you ever?
Charlie, play here, okay. Any questions, thoughts so far before we toss a new topic on the table? Is this helpful?
Hey, I got one thought, and it's really related to the next topic, which is City Forum. Can you explain the different portals? Because we've talked about 2 or 3 different public portals and the longitudinal database and all that, and just want to understand what Civi Forum is versus some of our other portals and data warehouses that we have.
Yes, and so far, almost everything we've talked about from the citizen's perspective is going to be invisible. It's the necessary plumbing, infrastructure, non-sexy stuff that just kind of we need as a foundation for the things that people can see and use. And we've kind of gone out in concentric circles from tools that agencies can use, to researchers can use, like the external residents, employers, communities, intermediaries. They're kind of last, but that's starting to kind of come up now. because it's such a big topic, I figured we would kind of get into the work of the governor's workforce cabinet and some of the stuff that's driving next quarter, because I believe Governor Sanders is going to do a lot of the big kind of public announcements and things in June. So it'll be well timed with a June meeting. And that is probably why Chief Rogers here, and that's a very big topic on its own. But the city forum is the beginning of an integrated service delivery pipeline. And you might be interested in just take it through these. The genesis of why we're even doing this, actually, this one goes back a number of years. Under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Congress and Department of Labor, as far back as 2015, kind of laid out that, and WIOA brought together a lot of different previously siloed programs under one roof and said they need to work together. And there are requirements in federal law to align technology data to provide this kind of seamless citizen service and to improve coordination of services for improved outcomes. And then every state has to kind of put in their state plan how they're going to do this. And one of our key strategic goals for Arkansas and our WIOA state plan is to develop what's called a common intake process. If you walk into an American Job Center today, they're usually like a former Kmart or some big building and got a whole bunch of different, even though the people are co-located, it's a whole bunch of different information systems. And you can very easily go from person to person to person answering the same questions over and over again. We only have 11 of them for 75 counties. So you may have to drive multiple counties there. And depending on your coming home, they might have you drive across multiple other counties to bring a piece of paper somewhere and then back. If you have access to transportation and childcare and you have to work that day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea was we need a way to make sure that if a resident gives us information once, it can go all the places it wants to go. And that's the idea behind common intake. Part of it's also, they all ask different questions in different ways. And they might not ask the questions needed to make referrals to the relevant services. So a lot of this before it ever got into data or information technology was just everyone laying their forms down and saying, what do we all need to collect across all the programs? Let's speak the same language. Let's record them the same way. And let's make sure that even if this question isn't relevant to delivery of my service, if it's going to be a referral over to adult education or SNAP or something else, let's go ahead and ask that question. And that's not meant to be a static thing, but the recent maternal health executive order, we talked about, okay, we probably need to put a quantifier there to help with that, to help with connection to things that are current priorities for us. So we had to look at improved intake, referral, case management for customers served by multiple agencies. So the key for common being when it's crossing multiple programs or services. As part of this, it was actually the Allison Williams in the prior governor's administration, the former chief of staff, had a contact with Google and was somehow able to talk Google.org, the Google Foundation, who to work with Arkansas on a pro bono basis. Google.org is the philanthropic arm. So they have, after Google employees been there for 5 years, they can elect to go on a 6-month pro bono fellowship for a civic entity. It's largely been cities or counties in the past. We were the first state to do it. And so this was really something that the governor's office brought over to us, but it was a really good fit for what we needed to accomplish for common intake under WIOA and the combined partner programs. And so Google.org does a number of civic tech products. They're open source. They have a non-forked code base. It's governed by the civic entities, but they give us the code. We run it on state infrastructure. We have full control over the product. We can develop enhancements to the product, but then everyone else gets it. The city of Seattle, which is a city that has the same population as the state of Arkansas, had already been using this product called CiviForm, which is a forms tool, a common intake tool, for several years very successfully. and it was a good fit for us. So we've had, it's been several different cohorts. We've had 16 Google Fellows working for the state for free for about 18 months to work with us to modify Civicform for statewide use. The additional benefit is like from us working with Google, we learn sort of the way that they do things, whether it's user experience or versus software development or project management, et cetera. So we like to do multiple things at once. So we as a state get to learn, and then we can get, well-designed, low-cost, interoperable products. Arkansas is the first to leverage this statewide, but we've already got about 9 other states in various phases of working to adopt, which is great because if they have functionality, you get it. They all can be customized. It's feature flagged, so ours can look how we want it, but the more adoption we have, and it's really scaling up logarithmically now. Miami-Dade County just came on, Charlotte, North Carolina just joined, Oklahoma City, Bloomington, Indiana. So it's also not just states and cities, it's counties are all kind of doing this with an interoperable foundation. So we all benefit from that. We all have governance, and it's a non-fork code base. So what does it look like? Again, it can be customized for us. But the gist of it is, it's a place to go and do forms. The forms are drag and drop, there's no code. But from the user perspective, they go in, and the way that we elected to set it up for now in Arkansas is to take what used to be a 175 question paper form and really get it down initially to right now it's about 12 questions. Like, what are the minimum questions stated and a lot of it goes into making sure that there's something that a 5th grade reading level can understand. A lot of the questions before were aligned with federal standards and they were not very intuitive. And when we first took those 175 questions and we put them in the platform, and then the program administrators really saw they're fine with it on a piece of paper, but when you see it on a digital device where you're used to everything being easy, immediately you find out that people aren't going to use this. It's too much, it's too complicated, it's going to take too long. So we're really working to minimize and save residents time and make things easy. So they go in and they answer the minimum number of questions. And then it starts recommending services. So we have referral triggers set in. If you have low English literacy or just general literacy challenges, it might suggest adult education. If you have food insecurity barriers, it suggests SNAP. It doesn't just have to be state programs. It can also be community-based programs. And I think that the ubiquity is the key here because we have a lot. In some counties, we have maybe 1 in 10 people who could or should benefit from a service that are aware and engaging with the service. So the whole concept is called no wrong door. Is we want to make sure that we have as many doors as possible. Whenever door somebody walks through, they have a better chance of getting connected with the right mix of services, which could cross state, federal, and community lines. So they come in, they answer the quick questions, they get something that says benefits to be qualified for, maybe a little bit of a blurb. There's a little card for each program. They just added something. They can't have pictures now. They haven't added pictures yet. There's a few different ways we can improve this card. It doesn't even have to be a form. It could simply be, here's a local food bank, here's the address. It could be purely informational. We'll get to a site, just connecting people with information and resources. Or it can be an actual form, and the forms are drag and drop, and they're working off a common question bank. And that's key to reuse. So if there's first names, universal field, you drag first name on. Once a person fills out first name on one form, every other form they do, they don't have to fill it out again. It's there. Or if they change it on one form, it changes across all the forms. So that's typically the average form completion time in Seattle from about 25 minutes to 2 minutes. And once you kind of get past that first form. So we can have a lot of these programs. So getting these visual indicators, getting these recommendations are key to cutting through the noise and trying to make connections to service where the door someone walks in doesn't dictate the service they receive. It can also be.
Robert, just curious, I'm affiliated with the nonprofit, it's for Hope Arkansas. And so they have local facilities called 100 Families.
Yeah.
And they have a system very similar, I don't know if it's based on this, where the client comes in and will fill out information, will refer them to state, local, and nonprofit services, basically for any needs that that person will need. You know, if this is related to that, or.
And we've been in
Because that's good for
discussions,
Scoreville Park, so it's funded by the state.
we've been in discussions with Restore Heart, and Arkansas 2-in-1 and others, because again, it's no wrong door to be able to,
Yep.
whichever way people come in, if they call 2-in-1, they Restore Heart, they get connected.
Because we've just seen the huge value to it.
And part of this is kind of coming down to this, that asset map, what Jennifer said, what are all the services? Which is actually, this is something that Secretary Putnam first, she did a lot of this in Kentucky, and when she first came to Arkansas originally for our home was kind of identifying the need for identifying all the services and how to improve integrated service delivery pipeline. We can go in, like we fill forms out, we can put quality checks in there, like address correction checks if maybe they didn't put the address in right. If they don't understand the question, we can put explanatory text. It is multilingual. It's currently in English, Spanish. We're adding Marshallese. Currently, we have to do the translation. We know that there's in northeast Arkansas, there's actually a dialect of Burmese that needs to be added. But now we've Google's given a grant to the U.S. Digital Service to provide to leverage AI to automate some of the translation. So it's easier and less burden to do these translations. But with the shared question bank, we don't have to translate as many things, just when we add in new questions. It is 5LA compliant. It kind of shows you how far you are with the form, and questions are repeated to cut down on time. So no code form creation there, and particularly for Restore Hope, there's a trusted intermediary role, which is very important in Seattle because a lot of people are intimidated by doing forms, have difficulty, superior statement, have a device. So a case manager or a counselor, an Arkansas United Community Navigator, someone with Restore Hope, someone at a homeless shelter can fill out the forms on behalf of somebody else, upload documents. And Seattle found it a big benefit to have someone that had familiarity with the process. There's a couple of ways to do this for smaller programs. We've found a lot of programs with running Excel or Access or something like that. It can be its own little mini baby kind of case management system where they can kind of go in and manage like the intake all the way through. But the way that for the bigger state programs that they have their dedicated case management systems, really this is just a place to do an intake, pull it out to the API and ship it in that system, and it just shows up as a referral like from anything else. This is not doing eligibility. This is really focused on connection. So it's screening people in the services, not screening. So this is really trying to take a very broad approach to connecting someone with anything for which they potentially might benefit. Elect in to give in. Then the eligibility we kick in over on the full case management side. So then Mitch, to your question, this is the kind of discovery and intake piece. Integrated service delivery is, like it's evolving nationally. A lot of other states are doing this, like Maryland with their MD thing. Mississippi's actually done a lot with this, but it's part of kind of sharing knowledge over time and across systems. So we're making sure that we can fold this into our strategic plans and do discovery and intake. We're not necessarily doing this linear. We're jumping now, looking at individualized student success plans, training plans, like what's common across secondary education, SNAP, all of the different plans to help someone plot their success and saying what data needs to go into that so we can work out the common language and then come up with a common set of assessments, the ability to share assessments data. So if someone's already done an aptitude assessment recently, they're not going to do it again. We can share that. Referrals and co-enrollment is in here. We have a business rules engine, which also connects the different case management systems. So if someone goes in directly into one of those systems, we can also run the referral rules and send it to another system. They don't have to come into this. But like I said, for the workforce studies, they go in and it's a paper form. So by putting this at the front desk, they're starting to capture foot traffic, they're leading the referrals, even if it's the person at the front desk first day, and they might not have the knowledge of all the services. So this isn't meant to be also a replacement for things. This is something we can supplement in with the gaps, but particularly community-based organizations, state-based organizations, community intermediaries. It's a tool that they can use to make additional connections to their own services and the state services by co-locating them in the same place. Then over the next 2 years, the roadmap can get into different ways to facilitate shared case management. Those digital records of completion credentials experience, which can in turn be used to help identify referrals and eligibility, common exit, outcomes reporting, and a cycle of continuous improvement. That whole thing is a big topic unto itself, but that's kind of where it fits in here. Just to finish answering Mitch's question, the other main portal that'll, it's highlighted with unemployment insurance now, it'll fully publicly launch in June, is the governor's launch portal, which it's got a number of modules, but the first module, it's really focused on job seekers. Go in, they put in your skills, experience, they can shred a resume, they can type it in, they can pull it in from the blockchain into a learning employment record. It works like with Netflix, it makes recommendations to cut through the noise. It's sitting on our administrative data, so it's making local, timely, relevant recommendations to help them explore careers, start planning, doing their career planning, looking through work and side education training programs that might be relevant, connecting with those, connecting with jobs. So we're bringing in a whole national labor exchange, and it's using a lot of machine learning to make recommendations on jobs. It takes the references into account so they can plus minus, and so it's kind of like Netflix, the more you give it, the more noise kind of cut through and kind of tailor that. It's streamlining the work search reporting. That's what we're actively using it with unemployment insurance now, and then we'll kind of tier it out to additional programs. And it concludes with kind of hitting into this for the wraparound services. We've got an employer-facing component to that coming up. We have a component that's more targeted at workforce boards coming up. So it's a number of different modules that are really just different persona-driven views into the same collective information. Does that help, Mitch? Or yeah. Okay, now the final one, AI. And I just wanted to start this up and leverage all the knowledge in the room. I've heard you talk about AI in the break. My initial framing thoughts, and we can just go wherever, was, and I've been working with artificial intelligence technologies since 2006, and I hear AI all over. And last week I was at NDC and hearing something about, well, AI is not allowed to grab high and things like that. And I'm kind of, what do you mean by AI? Because AI is a very large taxonomy of, and I think a lot of people think AI equals ChatGPT, large language model, generative AI. So I think if we're talking about an AI or we policies around AI or any of that, we at least need to, maybe one of the first steps is fleshing out that taxonomy, which we don't have to invent. That's been around for a while, to make sure that the policies can have the grain. Because if anyone's familiar with the Gartner maturity model, with the peak of inflated expectations and the plateau of productivity and the trial dispute and everything, but, we have large language models, generative AI, things like that are kind of early in that maturity model. Much more mature classification clustering, machine learning, optimization, all that stuff into the same thing, because they're very different technologies, different levels of maturity and controls. So that's really why we kind of like start some discussion around that, or how we might want to set our taxonomy around even talking about AI, or if we're making policies around AI, like, are we looking at the whole thing, or are we really just looking at the, what's changing now? Because the state's been using machine learning for 18 plus years, and increasingly now, but it can be very safe. It's measurable. It's got a lot of controls around accuracy and drift and bias and all kinds of things. But I think largely a lot of the AI discussion is around generative AI because of the increased awareness and ubiquity of it. And so that is something to sort of manage. Some things we might think about that I think there are benefits, you know, there's clear potential for increased productivity, improved decision making, and fraud detection, cybersecurity, the list goes on. I think we can harness the increased awareness of AI brought forward by LLMs and generative AI technologies, enthusiasm to maybe even increase awareness of some of the other forms of AI and their particular utility, while kind of steering the use of Gen AI to make sure we're balancing risk and utility. I do think, again, long list, there's potential risk and considerations. And certainly we could be worried about, is a user gonna use a public AI where it's going in training data and put data in there that we don't necessarily want to put in there. That's certainly a risk. I think there are potential changes to job skills, not just the state workforce, but our entire Arkansas workforce that we need to be cognizant of and thinking about changes in skills and how to manage that. Some users may become over-reliant on AI. It may not understand, it may seem too easy that, like, regardless of the machine learning and the technology, there's a huge dependence upon the quality of the data, the availability of the data, and there are a lot of soft skills that need to go with that to make sure that people understand that, they understand the data on which models are trained and how to mitigate that risk and how to communicate that, and whether there's even, you know, sufficient data of sufficient quality to be able to leverage these models. And we can open it up. I did want to say, when we pass kind of bigger specific topics, because I think this one, it's hard to just talk for an hour or quarters about. The DTP has in the past had subcommittees of interest. That's what led to our Arkansas data sharing agreement, or also this approach and other things. So we can break off, you know, smaller groups that include additional representatives, to meet more frequently. Sometimes we kind of got together and met for an hour a month to really kind of plow through specific topics at a faster rate. I can open that up to see thoughts, concerns, you know, like interest in forming a subcommittee or any other kind of approaches on the topic of AI.
Robert, I like the idea of the AI subcommittee. Personally think it's a little too soon to be discussing policies around AI, especially on generative AI. Maybe looking at it from more of like a principle approach, like taking some of your bullet points there that were highlighted. And these are our principles and guidelines around it. And at a certain point, that if you're going to use generative AI, it needs to come through a certain point that you're doing. So we're not using the public side because it's publicly available AI because it's not ready. And it's going to create false positive results that we don't need to be relying on, especially for our citizens. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we have seen that a lot of states have very quickly put out executive orders and all kinds of things. And we need to find the right pace and do the right thing for Arkansas. Through the U.S. digital service, we will get access to a more secure environment. And what we can do, you know, maybe start with raising awareness on not things that are trained on the entire internet, but on a trained, you know, small corpus of things that are very controlled and understood.
Yeah, I agree. I think a subcommittee is a great idea. I also say what we've seen is we call them early in career, because not a lot of say younger according to HR, but they're using the public AI, and if we don't do that, actually help them understand what they're in our private tenant versus the public, and giving guidelines. That's probably pretty important, especially if the program has been Googling code for years, right? This just makes it easier, and so we're just really putting a draft and better code review than writing code if you're going to use it, that sort of thing. So. But it's changing really fast, so it's great just to discuss and work with each other.
If there are no other thoughts, I think we can continue that conversation and maybe we can just do a subcommittee or start a.
The only thing I'd add that's really important is it not only makes our people more efficient, it makes the bad actors more efficient. And so we've seen things like just phishing emails where it was always easy to detect English as a second language. Well, they use Gen AI to get better and better at it. So you gotta remember the bad guys use it too and to educate on that.
I'll maybe add a small comment there that, at one level, identity tools and behavior analytical tools and things that we use extensively in the private sector. You're very quickly seeing, individuals that are highly trained in deep forensics or deep, intel, threat intel. We're quickly moving beyond the capability of those people to recognize what I would call a modern day threat or an attack that could be generated through AI or has characteristics of AI that if you don't have the proper user behavioral analytical tools, you'll never see them, and they will infiltrate and to the point that it'll be too late. So investment is critical in all things we've talked about today. And just, from where I sit and my experience so far in government, investment in cyber are two things that are not synonymous today. So we tend to, and it's not just Arkansas, I see it in all states that, the user behavior and the user experience that you talked about with banking, there's an ecosystem that lies beneath that user experience that most people don't appreciate, to make that user experience as wonderful as it is. So I would just for comment and thought that we've got to invest in the governance and the risk and the compliance functions of everything that Robert's talked about today. And then you layer AI in, and it gets exponential to some extent, but just understand that a great user experience with data integration and the sharing of data, that's a great thing, right? It's good for people. It's good for commerce. But it carries risk, and we've got to measure and manage our risk as we go into some of these.
Just to be respectful of everyone's time, we've got a few minutes left, so I'm going to move on to the wrap up. We've got the next meeting tentatively scheduled for Thursday, June 27th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Did this location work well for everybody? So because we'll be about the same time as the governor's workforce strategy, that touches on some of the portals. I think we can put that on the agenda, but again, we want this to be collaborative and a discussion, and letting you lead this direction. Or if you have other topics of interest, send them now, or you can send them to myself or Deputy CBO Heather Sacco after the meeting, and we'll have both our emails. We'll send out the meeting materials and the links and all things. We do need to do a selection of vice chair. We can do it now, or we can do it in the next meeting if no one's ready to opt in yet. Do we have any volunteers or nominees? If you like, we can think about it. You can email and we can take care of that at the next meeting. far as action items, Rick may have been taking notes on action items, but I think, we can get out some additional information around the portals piece. It seemed like there was some interest in that, and we can get email out to everyone to kind of talk about it, potentially doing a subcommittee. And I want to give everyone a minute for any final closing thoughts before we adjourn.
Robert, you are going to provide the slide deck, right?
Robert, I just want to say thank you for explaining the data hub. I learned a lot. My word for that would be international language translator, but thank you very much for that because I didn't know how we were going to get from here to there. And thank you for connecting Matthew now during the break so that he'll be part of our work so that we don't wind up going down a separate road without consciously aligning. Thank you.
I had a question around the CDO's office and responsibilities. You talked about the data governance, the data warehouse, the operations, the security, all of that. Is DIS driving those policies and procedures for just DIS, or do the other state agencies need to follow along with that as well?
And the way Act 912 is set up, it's intended for statewide. It's intended to kind of move from a siloed approach to kind of a whole of government shared service approach. That's a lot to do, and we're doing our best to just try to provide, shared capabilities for economies of scale, and particularly where it makes sense for us to have integration. So that's all potentially for statewide use. The MDM is designed for statewide use. It doesn't preclude the use of HSC MDM. MDM is very important. And I think so there could be a hub of hubs kind of concept that could actually, improve the statewide MDM. Obviously, we're not going to say it's the LNDI tool. I think there are opportunities in that case for, potential economies of scale, but there are lots of BI tools across the state.
I guess what I'm looking more for is guidance. Do you have things available? Has anything been started? Do we need to use certain things? Where are we on that, I guess?
We can certainly share out on each of those things, with activities to date, what's available, any policies, but again, we also want to use a tool there to say what's of value. Where do we need to focus next?
And my main reason for that is because we're going down that road too. So we're already developing our own governance, our own security, our own warehouse, and make sure we're on the state.
Yeah, so I have a comment, and it's probably not going to be an answer, but it is coming in. So again, going back and summarizing everything that Robert has talked about today, and you consider the success factors, right, of a successful, whatever it's going to be our data or a data integration or data sharing. I do believe it's critical that we centralize and standardize on a set of practices. If we don't, it's going to be very difficult. We're going to reach a point of diminishing return where we're not going to be able to successfully see some of the benefits because we've gone in disparate directions. We're going to reach a point where it's going to become very difficult to start integrating some of these platforms because maybe we went too far in a silo, or we didn't have a good governance platform from day one. So I don't know where it should live, but I do firmly believe that we should work towards standardizing on a governance model that at a committee level that we could agree on and adopt. Frankly, I don't think a product or a service like we're talking about today will ultimately be successful without a set of common standards, common practices, and an agreed upon governance model Because as we go away and we individually work within our agencies, there has to be an integration point somewhere where we understand how this data is going to come together. And that, that's going to take a lot of work in order to do that, because the concept that Robert's describing it's a wonderful thing. But there's a lot of work, that needs to go into the way we integrate these platforms and the way we use the data. You see it in the news every day, and we've had it happen here in Arkansas where, we are losing and exposing sensitive data to bad actors. It's happening today. And this is an opportunity both for the bad actors, but it's also a great opportunity for the state of Arkansas. So we just want to make sure that we're being very diligent in how we protect that data, platforms that we use to ultimately integrate all the data that Robert's talking about. It bears some thinking to think it through.
The thing, Gary, is to my point is, I think this panel needs to be the driver, because like you said, even in the health department, we're so disparate, we're so siloed, and they're doing their own things with data. And if we don't do it within our own agencies, there's no way we can do it externally with other agencies. So I don't really want to see mandates come down that you have to use this tool and put it here and go there. I want to see guidelines that say this is the best practices.
And I think you're spot on with the spirit of the language, that it's this panel collaboratively guiding that. And a lot of it's probably business and information architecture. It's interoperability. It's before we get to application or technology.
The one thought I would just add to that, the wonderful concept that's on the table is, I don't think it'll happen unless we lay out like a firmly establish a project or a program, and get the secretaries of each department to agree that, okay, I'm going to cede whatever authority to this group and my representative, and that's going to be my voice until we kind of get to closure. I don't know that they're going to view this as having that necessary authority. I think they're going to want to give it specifically. And so that would just be my recommendation for the structure of project team.
Any final comments? Thank you all so much for your time and contributions this morning, and this meeting is adjourned.
We want to